Welcome to Why Sales Analytics, templates, insights, and best practices for all of you sales analytics ninjas out there. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the webinar. And this webinar is brought to you by Sales Quants, which is a production of Madison, Michigan and Market. And I have to tell you, don't go anywhere, because for those of you that complete the full webinar, there's a freebie available, a free template, and we are going to be sharing our sales velocity calculator. Great way to start 2018, knowing the velocity of your sales. So stay tuned, and we'll give you instructions on how to get the sales velocity calculator at the end of the program. So before we get started, you probably wonder, who are these guys, right? Who are these two guys talking about sales analytics, templates, and best practices? And it's a funny story, but this is a picture. So I'm on the right, I'm Jeff, and Scott is on the left, which we're going to say hi to him here really briefly. But this is pretty typical, right? Scott is a seasoned analytics executive. He really has so much brain power. And I'm a goofball, always trying to upset the apple cart. So, but just so you know, the two of us are here. We're really thrilled to share our knowledge and expertise in the area of sales analytics and also sales and marketing alignment, because really ultimately it all comes down to the process you establish, the rhythm you set, and the reporting. And we're going to really focus heavily on how you can embrace a sales analytics practice and take it to the next level. So I've talked a little too long, and I'm going to really hand it over to the expert, to Scott Miller, to introduce himself. So Scott, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you, Jeff. I'm doing great, and looking forward to getting into some sales analytics here.
All right. Well, let's go. So go ahead, Scott.
All righty. Thank you, Jeff. So we all know who that is, Liam Neeson, who plays a scary guy in many movies. In this slide, instead of intimidating the bad guys, we see him here pressing at the last minute to try and hit his sales number. Making this call is very familiar for many people in sales. And in this desperate attempt to hit his sales target, he and reps can opt for a variety of strategies. And one strategy, as we see right here, the old spray and pray. While it can work, it also frequently does not work, as it can be exhausting, non-personal, while also focusing on quantity rather than quality. And the next approach would be the data guy. This approach can be to strive for the data-driven sales rep who knows when certain clients are likely to buy, who's tuned into the sales cycle, and who follows a strict sales process while eliminating surprises as much as possible, and also demonstrating selling behaviors that lend themselves well to predictive selling models. This data-driven sales rep frequently succeeds due to the successful design, implementation, and rollout of an effective sales analytics campaign.
So Scott, do you have to be a nerd to be a data-driven sales guy?
That's one way to think about it. I would say no. I would just say you have to be dedicated to being data-driven, dedicated to maintaining and keeping clean data, and most importantly, to a tried and true sales process that the entire organization will abide by.
Got it. Good. That's good to know. So let's hit on the impact of a sales analytics program, because I like this notion of a disciplined, data-driven sales guy that always hits his number instead of this kind of fast and loose spray and pray model, because we all know that's out. So what is the impact of a sales analytics program, Scott?
Exactly. So the intention of the sales analytics campaign is essentially to transform static data into actionable data while increasing visibility, enforcing accountability, extracting valuable insights, and then forming these accurate sales predictions at the end. So right here, we're extracting insights into the business. Some organizations drown in data, which is a challenge faced by all, to not drown in that data, but rather to leverage that stale, heavy, and untapped data and transforming it into actionable data that effectively tells your story. So what we're trying to do is we want to leverage the historical data as well as the future data while replacing estimates and projections with concrete data and standardized metrics. And then also in terms of extracting the insights, while we're gathering and analyzing the data, that's the first step. We also need to be sure to extract as many meaningful insights into the business. The benefits of this exercise are many. We want to empower management, discover unrealized insights, and also identify best practices. Then here, what we're looking at in this slide, we're talking about kind of the last step in the sales analytics process, right? We want to build these predictive capabilities. So arguably the biggest prize of having an effective sales analytics campaign is the ability to accurately predict sales while minimizing variance as much as possible. This capability yields a positive effect on the P&L. It can guide staffing and Wall Street expectations, and it also can help an organization develop credibility in the marketplace.
I like it.
So then here we're talking about the value of the strong analytics program. And as you see, right, we're reading from left to right. We start with data, gets transformed into information, which turns into insights. And you see along the bottom, the static data is on the far left, and the insights are very dynamic, being on the far right. So sales analytics is different than, and it's an extension of sales reporting. So reporting takes data from a CRM type solution and it summarizes it in the form of information. For example, rolling up all selling opportunities by product, by manager, by region, by state, etc. But in order to get the valuable insights into a business, the reporting solution must evolve to that next level, and it's got to provide leadership with key inputs to drive behavior. This is where tying in profitability measures, for instance, from finance, it can lead to value-add strategic decisions that can be made now rather than 2 months down the road when arguably it's too late and you miss the opportunity. These extracted insights, they add significant value above and beyond simply exporting data from a CRM and throwing spreadsheets around to various sales leaders who may or may not even look at the data. So that's why these insights essentially are valuable. And then if you flip to the next slide, the insights that you need, the insights that you can leverage, you're going to realize if and when you are data driven, right? So the current state, as you see in the upper left, many organizations are in that stage, right? So they have their reliance on data and their likelihood to realize meaningful benefits from the data. They are as you see in red, right? They're reactive rather than proactive. They have manual intervention rather than automation. And then they also have this push rather than this pull mentality and approach. The ideal future state, which we see to the right, it largely resembles best practices. So not only do companies focus on hitting their budgets for the current quarter, for the current year, but they also leverage historical data while they look ahead to data in the future quarters. And this behavior leads to a business that is proactive rather than reactive, that leverages technology, and has this pull mentality more than the push mentality, where leaders are pulling the data that they need in order to run their business effectively. So between this current state and the future state, we have a bridge to track, and to get over that bridge, we got to abide by these best practices. So this gap, how does a company evolve from the current state to the desired future state? They need to examine this gap, and then they can take necessary actions to expand their capabilities while they strive to resemble best practices by investing in people, processes, and technologies. Essentially, to get to that future state, that desired best practices state, organizations might need a cultural transformation, which can lead to a culture that'll be marked by this proactive environment, the technological advancements, and this data-driven focus.
So it really sounds like, moving from this world of static to dynamic, that the ability to manage the business and have clarity and hit your numbers and have command, it sounds like that's the outcome of really embracing a proper sales analytics campaign.
Exactly. And there's no half effort towards it, right? I mean, if you're going to do it, the recommended approach is to go all in, because if you're going to cut any corners in terms of taking that step, you're not going to get the insights that you could get if in fact you were all in terms of that approach. So
Right.
it's got to have everyone on the same page.
Well, good.
So
Well, then that's why we're here, to help everyone improve their forecast accuracy.
this is true, right? So this guy here on the left, this might be facing many companies in terms of their forecasting currently. You see on the left the situation. Forecasting can be seen by some as a necessary evil. That's how some people think about it, right? How confident do you feel when you make your sales forecast? Are you throwing darts at a dartboard with your eyes covered while experiencing a large forecast to actual variance? The objective is that we want to be like this cool guy on top rather than this poor guy presenting on bottom. Nobody likes this massive variance repeatedly every month. Sure, circumstances outside of your control do happen, and they do not lend themselves well to predictive models. But to the extent that circumstances and data are in your control as a sales rep, companies can build these tight forecasting projections. So, what actions can we take to minimize that variance and to be more like that cool guy on top? So in sales analytics, we embrace and welcome the challenge presented by leveraging massive amounts of data that can be both like and unlike data. And within this data are relationships and patterns that can be used by organizations to effectively make predictions and enable teams to meet their forecasts and budgets. And then here on the right, the result is that once you have the right people and the right tools within your team to run your sales analytics efforts, the blindfold comes off, you're sharpening your sword, and you're tuned into that, and you're tuned into your targets. So, we want to kind of transform from being the guy on the far left to being that guy on the far right. So the first step in terms of this effective sales analytics campaign is that we want to leverage our historical data, which in the sales analytics world typically can be your best friend, right? This historical sales data. You want to learn as much as you can about your past sales. Certainly past sales do not always predict your future data, but by all means, it can be a very good indicator. So the first step to get to know our historical data is looking at our closed deals from the past. Right here at the top, it's a simplified view of your past, of your actual sales data. When we're looking at historical data, we need to tune into sales by product, by team, by manager, by region, by sales rep, etc. And we also want to examine selling behavior summarized in terms of average deal sizes, average selling cycles. So we want to get to know our closed business as much as possible. Here at the bottom of the screen, we see some smaller deals tend to have quicker sales cycles, while the larger deals have longer sales cycles. So, for example, on the right, we see that 1,504 of the 1,698 closed won opportunities are under $50,000. So, in this particular example, under $15,000 represents small deals. And on the left, we see that of these 1,504 deals, 1,187, which looks like it's about 80%, have selling cycles that are shorter than 30 days. So the smaller deals have quicker selling cycles, and vice versa. The larger deals have longer selling cycles. That's the idea there. So management can find it helpful to run their business by learning these patterns across their organizations and tuning into historical past closed data. Taking the next step is this quota coverage. So all sales organizations, all organizations should have a tool like this in place. This tool analyzes the rep's expected performance over the course of the year. It leverages year-to-date performance, which is the past data, along with the health of the pipeline for the remainder of the year, which is the future data. So A frequently used and valued simple metric is the coverage metric, which you see here to the far right. Anything 3 or above is considered very healthy in terms of satisfying your quota, while anything between 2 and 3 is considered borderline, and then anyone with a value of under 2 is considered risky and is considered unlikely to hit their number for the year. Specifically, coverage divides the pipeline amount by the remaining quota in order to convey a rep's likelihood to achieve quota. So in this example here, right, we'll look at Chris Jones on the top record, and you see he's posted attainment in the first 3 quarters of about 1.7 million. Given his quota of 3.5 million, he has approximately 1.8 mil more to close in order to reach his quota. Given that his pipeline has about 5.8 mil, he only needs to close 31% of this 5.8 in order to satisfy his quota of 3.5 mil. His coverage metric is 3.2. We see to the far right, anything above 3 is considered healthy, hence you get the green arrow. So why is this analysis valuable? This table illustrates the ability of data to drive behavior. If too many reps have low coverage metrics and appear unlikely to achieve their quota, a company can launch marketing efforts in order to create pipeline and kind of help out their sales reps, which is a proactive approach. This analysis is valued by managers since it essentially provides a 12-month view of rep performance. Some managers might focus too heavily on year-to-date sales or the remainder of the year pipeline, but capturing both pieces of data in a compelling view like this enables managers to drive behavior of their team. Oop. And then if we want to jump ahead to the next slide. Thank you. The second step, right, once we've examined our historical data to get to know what business we typically close, the second step here, we want to examine our current pipeline. We got to look into our pipeline to see what's in the future quarters. We are in a good position to focus on the pipeline that we're working on currently. So when examining your pipeline that gets created, we need to understand how much pipeline created actually closes while also learning when the created pipeline will close. So here at the top, in the data part, we see that 43% of bookings, which is circled there in the upper left, 43% of the bookings is traced to opportunities created in the quarter in which they booked. So again, that's that relatively quick selling cycle. Then we move over to the middle of the screen here in the information section, and we see the recent trends indicate lower conversion of the in-quarter pipeline created to bookings. While we see that 3 of the 4 2013 quarters saw at least 48% of the bookings get created and closed in the same quarter, in 2014, we see that no quarters have exceeded this 42%. So management will want to understand this change. Is it a longer sales cycle and why? Then finally, at the bottom of the screen in this insights section, we see that 42% of the total pipeline created last quarter, if we're assuming and we're in Q4 14, we see 42% of the total pipeline created last quarter is in the proven agree stage. So you see the 37% plus the 5%. And since we track historical data, we could determine that our business is in great shape as we enter Q4 if our historical data suggests that only 30% of pipeline is in these final 2 stages of the sales cycle at the start of the next quarter. You know, 30% historically, and we're at 42%, so our pipeline is advanced pretty good as we're entering this next quarter. So this is a way to look at pipeline creation and kind of to get to know your business and extracting insights into your business. Then if we flip to the next slide, we're looking at in terms of we're looking at pipeline progression. How do we score and determine how well people are advancing their pipelines? This is a valuable tool that measures how effectively reps advance their pipeline from 1 month to the next, from 1 quarter to the next, whatever your timing is. Evaluating the progress of an organization, examining the progress that the organization makes in developing its pipeline over time. It's invaluable and it's difficult to measure and quantify at times. Reps need to nurture the relationships they have in order to advance their pipeline through the selling cycle. So in this tool that we've built, positive points are given for advancement in key criteria, while negative points represent steps backwards. So for example, if a deal advances from one stage to the next, the move yields a +1 value in scoring. At the top row, we see Tom Lusch. He's excelled at advancing his pipeline. He's really been able to accelerate the sales cycles of many deals, as he has totaled 22 points in terms of pipeline velocity related to the category and the stage fields. Category has advanced by 12 points, stage has advanced by 10. So combined, he's totaled 22 points for category and stage. So he's done a great job of advancing his pipeline from one category, from one stage to the next. Similarly, if we go to the next slide, while that slide looked at progressing your pipeline, this slide looks at pipeline that's at risk. So if we look here in the upper left corner, leaders need to juggle many selling opportunities, and they have to identify those with risk as well as those that should be slam dunks, while keeping bookings expectations, quotas, and budgets in mind. So leaders are juggling a lot of information in their mind, and they can be susceptible to some of the risks. And a part of minimizing forecast risk is urging team members not to race. So in terms of racing specifically, reps need to focus on the right opportunities, not the wrong ones. They need to be sure they have the accurate staging. They need to be sure they're tracking the correct value. And then also the date. They need to be sure that we have the correct date in the system. So while the race, and then if we go to the lower left, the potential deal spoilers. So while the race sources of risk are largely in the sales rep's control, right? Right opportunities, accurate stage, correct value, exact date. Sales rep has a lot of control over that. There's also some potential deal spoilers that a management team must tune into. For example, crisis at a client, there's no way to predict that that'll happen. You can be caught off guard by that, certainly. Then also kind of quality perceptions is also something that you might not have control over if certain clients have had bad experiences with products. And they'll rant and rave about that, and that's something that's out of your control. And then finally here on the right, you'll see that sales teams perform best when a formal, well-defined sales process is in place and is honored, and it's followed by the entire organization. So as we see, the level 1, which are these gray bars, represent organizations with no standard sales processes. In orange, you'll see the level 2 teams, which have informal processes. And in yellow, which is level 3, they have formal processes that are monitored and measured. Not surprisingly, these level 3 teams, the yellow bars, those that have the monitored and measured formal processes, they perform better in terms of making their quota and forecasting wins and losses. The importance of formalizing sales processes cannot be understated. And if we go to the next slide, the third stage that we'll look at here is sales team analysis, which is focusing on understanding the reps on the team, who's performing well, who's not performing well, who's going to attain their quota for the year. So this is a way to kind of monitor and track the team at the individual level. So the first way we can do this is the sales rep scorecard. Most teams have some type of scorecard that they use. Sales reps can be evaluated across a variety of metrics. This product focuses on aggregating a list of predefined and customized metrics that can be quantified for all your sales reps. So in this example, we see the details for the top 3 sales reps, top 3 ranked sales reps. We look at the third guy is Aaron Young. He's only ranked 15th in terms of forecast accuracy, but his strong rankings in all the other categories propel him to have an average category ranking of 5, which was good enough to rank him as the 3rd best sales rep. So these scorecards are very different from one organization to the other, but the idea is the same in terms of getting everyone on an equal playing field and in terms of ranking your reps and evaluating reps in comparison to one another. So if we go to the next slide, this is another valuable tool to monitor progress of reps across a team. So this graph evaluates reps according to their two primary areas of contribution. And how we define the two primary areas, you see along the bottom, the x-axis is attainment, which is what you've actually closed, your sales won. And then on the y-axis, going up and down vertically, we see our pipeline created. So reps can contribute to the business on those two parameters. Actual contributions in this example have been separated into quartiles, 25th, 0, 25th, 50, 75th, and 100 percentile, in order to normalize the data and adjust for any outliers. Viewing reps in relation to one another like this enables management to cleanly view performance. Anyone performing in the green is generally recognized as having a very strong quarter, since they're ranking high in terms of both attributes. People in yellow generally balance each other out, as somebody that's high in attainment and low in bookings is complemented by someone who's high in bookings and low in attainment. But then there's those reps in red who are going to have some explaining to do. If you haven't been closing pipeline and you haven't been creating pipeline, management's likely to focus on these people while wondering what they've been doing with their time every day. So at the end, this graph brings visibility to the performance of the sales teams, and it evaluates reps in comparison to their peers.
Right. It looks like, so if I'm Lisa Miller's sales manager, she's on the lower right.
Yep.
She's had a great quarter, but it's most likely the next quarter she'll probably fall a little short. It looks like she'll have to get back into the creation mode again. So that is just a good signal to determine.
Yeah, I mean, that 25th percent of a pipeline created. So this quarter, as you say, she's tracking well. She's doing well. She's at that 75th percentile. Being that she's only at the 25th, she's at the low end in terms of creating pipeline for that next quarter. She's going to have some hustling to do, right? So the table's a little bare at this point for next quarter. So it gets back to what we talked about earlier. The percentage of pipeline created that gets created and booked in the same quarter. So you'd hope that Lisa, as you enter that next quarter, you hope that she's going to be able to get some quick sales cycles and create pipeline in Q3 and close it in Q3 also. So you never know. But yeah, I mean, certainly the way the deck is stacked at this point for Lisa, she's got some work to do when you look ahead out to that next quarter.
Makes sense. Yeah, hope for some quick turns next quarter. Absolutely.
Yep. This slide, we're looking at the quota attainment. So this tool determines the likelihood of reps to meet and exceed their quotas by tracking the closed business and the pipeline amounts in comparison to what their quotas are. This solution measures and evaluates the reps' likelihood to meet their quota. The likelihood of the reps to achieve their quota can be assessed when you compare their average attainment to their required attainment. So average attainment is defined as the historical average quarterly attainment during, in this example, let's just say during the Q1 17 through Q3 17 period. So the average attainment is what the rep has booked in the first 3 quarters of this year. Right now we're in Q4, so the required attainment is defined as the required quarterly attainment that's needed for this quarter, for Q4, in order for reps to achieve their quota for the year. If the required quarterly attainment is less than 85% of what they've been averaging, then the rep is deemed as healthy and it's shaded in green, and you could label them as tracking, right? They need to close less than 85% of what they've been averaging every quarter. In this example, you see here 4 people have exceeded their quota already. 3 people are tracking, which means that their required attainment is less than 85% of their average attainment. 1 is in range. They need to close between 85% and 115% of what they've closed on average. And then we see 30 people are at risk, right? They need some big quarters here in Q4. They need to really, their average, what they need to perform really has to, what's required really has to outperform what they've been averaging by a good margin. So this business arguably is in a bit of trouble. and they need to have a heavy Q4 in order to hit their number. And then we see here, I know we've covered a lot. We've examined why sales analytics is important, what your mindset should be if you know you're going to embrace sales analytics, and then also what you can do in terms of best practices adoption. Remember, you need the right people, processes, technologies in place in order to get started, and it's a cultural mindset that views past, present, and future data as its most prized possessions, and learning how to leverage that data in order to extract actionable data and meaningful insights into the business is the key to sales analytics. So that being said, Jeff, that's all I got.
Wow, Scott, we covered a lot, and I feel like anyone that's watched this will have a really strong perspective on how to win in 2018. But I'm sure, we hit a lot of really great insights and reports and, data, information, and insights at a very high level. So we do really encourage you to contact us with questions and ask for any further explanation, because the purpose here was just to show you the range of possibilities available and the fact that there's been proven success. Both Scott and I have worked in organizations where having sales analytics and a strong discipline and commitment to analytics has led to, proven success. And sometimes success means knowing you're going to miss, right? So, in many cases, success is killing it and winning. And a lot of times you can win by accident, but knowing, predicting your future, predicting the outcomes with a high degree of precision, win or lose, and we don't like to lose, but win or lose is often the case, what we strive to do. So please do contact us with questions. If you email me, I will send you the sales velocity calculator. So the freebie we have today, and it's a sales velocity calculator, something Scott built that you can play with. We'll provide a little tutorial with that to really help you better understand exactly what type of momentum you have at play with your sales, so you can better predict your attainment to quota. With that, we are going to bring this webinar to a close. So the Sales Quants Media Company thanks you. This webinar produced by Madison, Michigan and Market. We also thank you, and we really encourage you to reach out and ask us any questions that you do have. So thank you for your time as our Sales Analytics Ninja, Scott. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. We had fun.
Okay.